Hi, welcome to Prayers Radio. I'm Reverend Rich. This is Reverend
Paul. Hey.
And we are here on our wonderful channel welcoming our guest, Reverend Dr. Marilyn Leo. Now, this show is only about prayer. Ernest Holmes.
An affirmative prayer.
There you go, Paul. Okay. Well, let's have you pray us in, if you would. Marilyn, may I call you Marilyn?
Certainly.
Awesome.
That's what I sign my name as, Marilyn. All right. So just join with me, knowing that we are one in this place, this very special place of being together. The way is joyous and loving. The solution of my problems makes me a better person. It is easier to love my fellow man. It is easier to be a happy person. God acting through me transforms me, and my whole viewpoint changes. I now see that the word impossible is a lie. God's possibility is always within me, awaiting my recognition. I am now victorious over troubles. Life spiritualized is life simplified. In quietness, my purpose becomes clear. My divinity takes control, and my troubles fade as mist before the morning sun. The way of truth is mine today. There is nothing to oppose me, and all of God is working for my victory. And so as we take these words of Ernest Holmes, we just allow it to sink in and to be, we are fully involved, consciously involved with that one which we all partake in. It fills each of us, and we are in it. There is nothing else. And so this morning or this afternoon or wherever we may be at whatever time it is, we now acknowledge our oneness and the love that permeates all that is. I give thanks for this wonderful opportunity to be together, consciously together. For subconsciously, we are always together. And we must remember that. So I just accept this with thanksgiving and awe and just allow it to be. And so it is.
So it is. Awesome.
Yeah.
What book was that?
That's 365 Days of Richer Living. And they are daily inspirations by Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker. So that was part of I just opened it up, and that was the one that I decided to use.
Perfect. That is perfect. So let's have Dr. Marilyn, Reverend Dr. Marilyn Leo, tell us about herself and the couple of books she has, and who are you?
All right. Well, I'm celebrating my 91st birthday in a couple of weeks, and yes, it's very exciting. I mean, the 90th was very exciting, and this is even more exciting because another year. Oh boy, another year. And I have lots of good things planned, so I'm sure I'll be here next year too. But I have retired as a minister many, many, many years ago. However, I stay busy. I founded, my husband and I were asked to begin the archives of Science Mind Archives. Mm-hmm. And we did that, and about a year and a half later, he passed on. He was very sick and passed on. And so I've been working as promoting the archives. And in 2007, then I incorporated as a nonprofit. So that is my baby is the Science Mind Archives and Library Foundation. And it shares the history of science and mind throughout the world. That keeps me busy. I've written a couple of books, one being 7 years ago in his company, which is very well received, and it's available, which Rich or Paul will tell you how to get one if you want. and the other one is the most recent is Mother of a Mystic, and this is the youth. Ernest Holmes as youth, and Anna Holmes his mother, and how the family lived and how she brought up the 9 boys that that she gave birth to. Okay, so those are my most recent full books. I have contributed to the magazine for several years, and just continue to do work. Right now, I'm working on another small book on the history of the education of science of mind, putting together how it was when Ernest was teaching, and then moving on through the years and how it's being taught today. And we'll show the sameness and hopefully the sameness, but there are differences in the process of how things are being taught. And so that's pretty much what I do. I have recently moved into a senior facility, but I'm very healthy, and but I do use a walker, and that helps me. And I exercise a lot and take walks a lot to keep my legs. Got to keep them going. And I'm traveling. I travel, and I'm on the Heflin Foundation, which supports ministerial students, science and mind ministerial students. So I keep busy, as you can tell. Okay, what
So
would you like?
Marilyn, I was wondering what your first introduction to spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer was for you.
I guess I would guess in 1943, um, when my mother married Reginald Armour, who was a minister at the Home Office Church, and they got married, and so my sister and I and my mother all moved into this house with Reginald Armour and his son Reggie Jr.
What? When did you meet Ernest Holmes? I mean, you have a history with the science of mind and knowing the family and stuff, and our listeners would probably like to hear about that too. I like the circus part though.
Well, Reginald Armour's home was right connected to Ernest Holmes' home. Reg knew Ernest from the time he was 12 years old, and Ernest was about 27, and he was the umpire, among other things, for the city of Venice. And so Reg had a rather difficult childhood up to that time, but he was now in Venice, California, and they got him to go to the park and play baseball, and the boys saw the other boys on the team. They saw this wart on Reg's hand, and they said, "You should do what you should go and tell Happy. He'll tell you how to get rid of it. He'll get rid of it for you." And so Happy is the nickname for Ernest Holmes, and and I'll tell you how I got that name. And I did that, and of course the wart disappeared, and he and Ernest became very close friends throughout their lives, um, until 1960 and 77 is when Reg passed on. Anyway, so he became close, and when Ernest started Boy Scouts at his brother Fenwick's church, Reg went to that and became a Boy Scout, and there's a popular picture of him in his Boy Scout uniform. And so, what did I just say? I would tell. Oh, about Happy. When Ernest was very young, he was the youngest of the 9 boys, and his father was a farmer, but that's seasonal, and so he would have to move, and so his mother Anna, would take all the boys, and they would move following their father. And so there was one period when he was working for a lumber camp, lumber camp, and um, and Ernest evidently was old enough that he could go and work there, but he worked as a cook. So that's where he learned to cook, and he loved to cook, and he loved meat, and he learned to be a butcher later on in his life. But the men there on the crew, um, he was always happy. Ernest was always a happy person, and so they started calling him Happy, and that's how he got that nickname.
I didn't know. I didn't know he was a butcher.
Yes, when he was 18, I think it was about 18, he went to Boston. Of course, his older brothers, some of them were married, and they had businesses, and one had a store and grocery store, and so he went and worked for them, and then in his spare time he would go to the public library, and that's how he got his education, because he was never interested in going on to college. His formal education ended when he was, well, in the 8th grade, and that was probably about 15, and so anyway, while he was during that period of his time, lots of things happened, and he learned to be a butcher. But Hazel was one that one time when she came over, um, just around the bush into our yard, um, she was always dressed in a hat and usually gloves and high heels. She always wore high heels and hats. And anyway, she came over. She came over. Ernest was already there because he was cooking, and I guess he had made the beans. If not, he had taught my mother how to make the chili and beans. And she came over and joined the party of, it was Reg's family. Is my I think it was, I don't remember for sure who it was, but anyway, it was family. And one of my aunts said, "That is a beautiful hat, Hazel." And of course, being who she was, she just took it off and gave it to her. And she was a very, very, very generous person. So I just thought that interesting. They, Ernest and Hazel knew a lot of celebrities, um, a lot of people, and scientists, and people from all walks of life. And when they would have parties, they would have all of these different people. They wouldn't just have scientists or people from the institute. They would have people from the institute and scientists and celebrities and movie stars all at the same party. They thought that was a way to have a party.
Hey, do you remember your first introduction to the science of mind philosophy?
I think no, I think it's just just part of life.
Like organically, just you brought into it.
Yes, I went to Sunday school. I mean, there wasn't any Sunday school, but we went to church, and my mother always sat up in the balcony. This would be at I remember it was not the Wiltern Theater at the beginning. It was a different church, a different theater, um, Belmont, or I don't know, uptown. Because Ernest would go, he would set up get people coming to his lectures on Sunday. And when he had built up this audience, it wasn't a congregation because there was no church, but it was when he built up this audience, he would take one of his students, like Bill Hornaday or one of the other young men or woman, and say, "I've got the perfect place for you. Go start a group there." And so he would move from theater to theater. And at any rate, my mother would, Hazel always sat up in the balcony of the theater, like in the second row, and my mother would sit up there too. And she would often bring Dorothy and me to Sunday, to the church. I call it a church. It wasn't supposed to. It wasn't a church at that time, but or maybe it was the beginning of the church. You know,
So we
at any
call them
rate,
centers now, right?
we would, Dorothy and I would sit on the floor at my mother's feet and draw pictures and things. So that's how I first got Science of Mind in my head, just just because I was there. And
And how did you get the this spiritual mind treatment, as we call it, affirmative prayer? How did that come about?
oh well, you know, I did take classes later on in the '70s. I took classes, and so that's where I learned. Took Science of Mind 1 and 2 up in the auditorium that was in the home office. And
That's
then
cool.
it was some years later before I got into practitioner classes, and it wasn't until the '80s after I married Richard, um, then I got into the. We decided, I decided, we decided, whatever it was, that I was doing all the work of a minister. Might as well have the title. So school of ministry, because we started a church in which is now the Rogue Valley Church,
Oh yeah.
and so we started that under the Science of Mind. It was called Science of Mind Center, I think, in
Do you
Medford.
remember your first demonstration?
Well, as I look back on it, I think my first demonstration was when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I don't know if I told you that before, but I didn't know anything about Science of Mind, of course, and I wasn't interested at that age. And but I was a big I wanted an older brother. I thought an older brother would take care of me, and you know, there's stories. I guess I heard stories about big brothers and stuff, and so I would just wish, you know, how could I have an older brother? Since I was the oldest child, oldest grandchild, oldest, you know, of any of my cousins, how could I possibly have an older brother? But I just wished much that I could have an older brother. And then my mother married Reg, and I had an older brother. He was 12 years old, so he was 4 years older than me. And so I would say that's my first demonstration. You know, a child's wish is with a lot of feeling. You know, oh, I really wish that could happen. So the intention was there. Sure, the emotion was behind it. So if you really wanted to get down to it, that would be, you know, a demonstration. But other than that, I do remember some what we might call little demonstrations, but in God there is no small or big. So it's when somebody would call me, when someone would call me, um, they would ask me for prayer for something. Uh, please, thank you. Um, they would call me and ask for a particular situation, and I remember one was that she wanted her son to come home. She hadn't seen him for a long, long time, and she just wanted to know that he was okay and that he was coming home. And so anyway, we hung up, and within, I'll say 15, 30 minutes, she called me back and said, I just heard from my son and he's fine. And I don't recall anything else. And there was another one too, where a woman couldn't find her keys. Well, we know that nothing is lost. I had an experience yesterday. I couldn't find my phone. No, it wasn't my phone. No, it was, I can't remember now what it was. It was something that I could not find. And it was a credit card. And oh my gosh, where is my credit card? And I followed the steps where I knew I had it. I did that twice. It wasn't there. It wasn't there. I looked all over my apartment. I could not find it. Finally, I called my practitioner, and that's the first thing you should do. Is call Marilyn, there's nothing lost in the universe. It's been misplaced, and you'll see it. Of course, within a very short time, it was laying on the floor. It fallen out of the pocket of my clothes, and it was laying on the floor. And I just hadn't looked down far enough. I looked on top of everything. I didn't look on the floor. So that's what you call. I mean, that seems like such a silly thing to call a practitioner for. And I said, that's why I pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, but nothing silly in the eyes of God, right?
No,
And we
nothing's
be God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can do it for myself, and I know that it's here. I know, and everybody, anybody else that I ask them, have you seen my credit card? No, you should call the bank immediately. Blah blah blah. They get all excited. Well, I didn't get excited about it because I just knew that it was there, and if somebody found it, they would have turned it in. I just knew that. So
so
anyway, it was found.
we're at the
Yes.
5-minute mark, and we're going to shotgun questions now. So, and ask you all sorts of different other questions.
Uh-oh. Okay.
So you've already covered on how what you do if things trigger in your life. With your credit card, you just went into prayer and called your practitioner. We do that, Paul, don't we?
We do that.
Let's see. How do your prayers evolve? How they evolved over time. I think you covered that too. You just said you went through the steps and then you started taking more classes, and then you all of a sudden, I'm a reverend.
I never really learned 5 steps.
No.
It's interesting. I was friends with Gina Clark and his wife, Jean Boutzer Clark. In fact, her robe. She gave me her robe, and um, and I used to visit them in their house, and we'd be out by the pool and that, which was another demonstration for them. They had a free house for the rest of their living, and the gardeners and everything was all free to them for the rest of their lives. And then it went to a children's hospital after that. But at any rate, I would go over and stay with them. And my husband and I lived in Oregon at the time, and I just could not get it through my head. I'm trying to remember now what it was. Oh, how do you reach that place of of knowing? Of when I would go there, it was a time before. I think it seems to me it was before the 5 step, and so there was the 3 steps. So how do you reach that place within you? That was always the question. And then we got the 5-step treatment, and I was in classes, and so that helped serve me, and so that's pretty much it. Did that answer your question or not?
It works. I mean, you've evolved over time, and you brought in the philosophy as you learned it, and you've applied it. That's all there is to it.
When you're living with it, with your parents and people around you, people always thought I was different, which, yeah, I realized I was different. I was kind of goofy, but I don't know. You're attracted to certain people and other people, but I always felt different because I had different attitudes than other people did. It's another happy. I wasn't always happy, but I tried to be. As a typical teacher, like to show off how I could get away with things.
So, Marilyn, how would you explain our philosophy to our viewers who don't know that?
Well, what is this that you teach? Well, that we teach that there's only one infinite presence, and we're all a part of it, and it is within us and around us, and everyone is the same. They were all created the same. And they say, but they're so ugly, or they're so mean, or whatever. Well, those are man-made things. They're not the real you, that which is within you. The your inner life that always lives forever, that continues and will always be. And it's like, well, I take that back. That's about it, I guess.
So
The easiest way I think is talking about the relationship between the body and the mind, because understand that they either agree with it or disagree with it, but they understand. And if you tell them that your thinking and your life is based on your thinking and you can change it, that then you're talking their language. And because just saying, well, all is one and all is beautiful and that within you is, you know, that's kind of airy fairy to people who have never heard anything about it. You talk about that it's not your brain, but your mind, and what you're thinking and your attitudes. I've been through several difficulties health wise as well as others, as most people have been through some difficulties in their life. And my attitude when I was getting chemotherapy was I would go in and they gave me a room, a TV. I could take a nap. I could bring my lunch and eat and watch television. And I just took it as a day of rest, relaxation. The day off, I don't have to do anything. And that was my attitude through the whole thing. I never had any pain. I never had any sickness, as some people do. And at any rate, I think an attitude of a person has so much to do with how their life flows and how they get through a problem. It's well, that's about it, I think.
well, you know better than anybody. You're 91 now. So
I should be very well versed in everything, of course.
well, we appreciate you being on the show. There's a couple of questions we have left, which is what's your favorite Ernest Holmes book?
Well, I have several. Right now, I am reading um, Can We Talk to God, which is a print of Nebel Lectures, which was in 1939, 34, 39, something like that. And I'm really enjoying that. But I love this thing called You, and I love The Voice Celestial, which I've only matured enough to understand it in the last 5, 10 years. So that's yeah, I'm glad I finally got there. And I really, really enjoyed it. An interesting thing about the book, this thing called Life, which was written about the same time as this thing called You. There's a story about this thing called Life, and it's in Fenwick Holmes' book, which was originally started as an autobiography of Ernest Holmes, but then he passed on, and so it was turned over to Fenwick. I'll just share this with you because I think it's so wonderful, and it really tells the generosity of Ernest and Hazel. During World War II, besides their constant personal treatment work, Ernest and Hazel Holmes donated 45,000 paper-bound copies of his book, This Thing Called Life, to the armed forces. Among the many letters received from these soldiers in appreciation was one from a boy in the South Seas who wrote that his troop possessed only 2 copies, and since everybody wanted to read one of them, they had posted the books page by page. They took one book apart and put page by page up on the board where all the men, when they were off duty, could read them. And that during the Korean War, immediately after breakfast, Ernest would retire to his room or drive to the office and spend some time treating for peace and protection of all life. And Hazel would do the same. So I thought, it's just people don't realize the generosity of Ernest and Hazel Holmes, and there are many stories like that.
They don't realize that we didn't have cell phones until like 90s. When I was in the service, books were a commodity that we'd love to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've already showed how does spiritual mind treatment show up in your life just by the many demonstrations that you've talked about in our show. When do you release a prayer into law? Would be a question that we have. What's that?
Well, I said you start with it, that the words that you're speaking are, the law is working on it as I speak. It's immediately. You know that when you speak the words that of your intention, once you have felt that oneness, recognizing that you are one in it, with it, and it is in you. The whole and then you just come to that realization: the law is already working. Whatever I ask for, whatever I declare as being the truth, the law is already working. So you just declare it as working right in the beginning.
The one mind.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. It
is the one mind, and that's what makes it possible to treat for people on the other side of the world. Because there is only one, and no matter where you are, you're still one with that person in the other part of the world, and you can just identify them by name with your own consciousness, because they are attracted to you and you to them for a purpose.
Yeah, I wrote about that. I wrote about that in the default prayer of the book that I'm writing, and because there's no time in spirit, wherever you do a prayer, it resonates throughout the universe.
That's right.
And that's something. Yeah.
Whatever you're thinking and doing it's in the subjective mind. It's in the let's see, what did I hear that called? Ernest used the term erase consciousness. And
race mind.
Jung used collective unconscious, I think. And but I heard another one the other day, and which I liked. Now I don't remember. I wrote it down. I write everything down. That way I don't have to. But look through my stuff and you wonder where it is. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Is there any takeaway that you want our audience to know for the show?
Well, I think this just a wonderful opportunity, and I really appreciate being here and getting to talk to people about science mind, because I don't get that opportunity very much, and so it's a real joy. I mean, I read every day, from my book, from other books. I'm reading right now, Can We Talk to God? And of course, if I enjoy the Unity Daily Word, I read that. I read the Sunshine Magazine Daily Word. I read that most every day. Particularly if I enjoy the particular author. And anyway, I have enjoyed this very, very much, this wonderful time together.
And we're both honored to have you here.
Oh, we are completely. Well,
yeah, I hope that the people that see it and see all your shows, which I'm sure they're all wonderful, and I intend to began because I didn't even know you existed, except Paul. I knew Paul existed, and I knew Richard existed too, but not. I didn't know about the show. So
Well,
this is a wonderful opportunity, and I hope that everybody that's listening or watching uh, learns more about science of mind.
mm,
There's a way to learn about it. If there isn't a center near you, there is online. There are ways to find out, and there's lots of live streaming churches and things. So
yep. Just go to
anyway,
csl.org, or even Agape has the same type of message that we put out. To be fair,
yes, agape, wonderful.
Mhm.
I just came across a couple of music play. I guess you call them playbooks. They're all the music is
Mhm.
in the book, and I happen to have one from the group Alliance, and I had one was with Ricky Byers, um, and some music of Agape.
Mhm.
And so got that in the envelope to go to the post office also to go
nice.
send to the archives. Make
Well,
sure that they have copies of those in the Science of Mind archives.
it's
So can
so
you come back at a later date so we can dive deeper?
Sure.
well.
Yay.
What else have I got to do?
You also have Reverend Bill Mahoney, who's over in who's show number 33, so
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, and there's just science of mind is all over the place. But let's
Oh,
close
it
up this
is.
show because we're going way over. I'm Reverend Rich, Prayers Radio. This is
Reverend
Reverend,
Paul
and we are
and
Prayers Radio.
inspiritalive.com.
What's that? There you go. InspiritAlive.com. So we're just so blessed to have you. If you could pray us out, we'd be very grateful.
All right. Well, we've had a wonderful time here as far as I'm
Mm.
concerned. And so I just know that the rest of this day, whether it be overnight or wherever anybody is in this whole world, that the rest of the time in their life, not just today, but in their life, is filled with magic, great possibilities, and as Ramont Anderson, I believe is his name, said, possibilities become probabilities. Wonderful, wonderful life. And so I just accept this for each and every person, knowing there is humor, love, joy, beauty, and great abundance. And so it is.
So
And
it
so it
is.
is.
So everybody say
Thank
bye.
you so much.
I'll go
Bye
ahead.
bye.